So when we talk about AI today, I want to make one thing clear that this is not just a technology conversation, y'all. This is a power conversation because, the future of AI is really a question about who gets to shape our reality.
Welcome to Voices of Sovereignty, a podcast from Rock the Native Vote, where we explore how Native voices, stories, and leadership strengthen democracy and protect our sovereignty. I'm Jenny Underwood, Executive Director of Rock the Native Vote.
Hi, and I'm Theron Waukini, Program Manager of Rock the Native Vote.
And I'm Rachel Byford. I'm the graphic artist and event support for Rock the Native Vote.
Rock the Native Vote is a nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering Native communities to participate in democracy and relate in ways that reflect our values, honor our ancestors, and shape our future. And today we're talking about something that is changing the way we live, the way we learn, and potentially the way we vote, artificial intelligence, or AI.
To help us understand the opportunities and challenges AI brings to civic engagement, we're joined by Anisha Hardy, Executive Director of Alabama Values Institute, and a respected leader working at an intersection of technology, democracy, and racial equity.
Anisha, welcome to Voices of Sovereignty. We're glad that you're here and you're joining us today. If you want, you can tell us a little bit more about what you do at Alabama Values Institute.
Yes, and it's just Alabama Values. I'm sorry. I love the Institute. You all give me an idea. But no, yes. So I consider myself, I'm a cultural narrative strategist and also the founding executive director for Alabama Values, which is a grassroots communications organization. My work sits at the intersection of culture, technology, media, public opinion, and democracy. Specifically, dealing with BIPOC communities within a Southern context. I help people understand how the stories we are told and the stories we tell ourselves shape, the political possibilities that we believe in. So I believe that narrative and messaging is not just communication, that narrative is power. It influences policies, it shapes public memory, it moves resources and informs what society really believes is possible. So when we talk about AI today, I want to make one thing clear that this is not just a technology conversation, y'all. This is a power conversation because, the future of AI is really a question about who gets to shape our reality and whether the people closest to community will be, centered, protected, or empowered, or further marginalized. And so I'm excited to be in community with you all today and having this discussion.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% with the narrative and the power, because a lot of times our communities are nearly invisible and other people are telling our stories. So we totally believe in that as well. We've done some preliminary research at Rock the Native Vote, and we know that a lot of our Indigenous community members rely on social media as our main source of information. And so can you kind of start to explain how AI is showing up, especially in social media and news, and how it's starting to impact what we're seeing already?
You're right. A lot of people hear AI and they immediately think robots and sci-fi. But the truth is, AI is already shaping how we see the world every single day. AI is already shaping our online conversations. And it might not be in this loud and obvious way, but in a very quiet and constant one. When you open Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and it instantly, knows what kind of video, that will keep you watching or on the app. That's AI studying your attention. Like, it creates these echo chambers. When Facebook shows you, let's see, whether it's a family member's post, but hides another, someone else's post without you asking, like, that's AI deciding what matters to you. And so when YouTube, people don't realize it queues up the next video before you even finish the first one. Everyone does not get the same cue. Again, that's AI predicting your next thought, right? And what will keep your attention. So when you're searching something on, whether it's Google and only certain stories show up first, that's not the full internet. That's the algorithm curating your world. And so when you think about how technology has changed the way people consume news or share information, that can be kind of scary, right? When you realize these little echo chambers are being created for different communities. And these systems learn not from our values, but from our reactions, our clicks, our pauses, the way we scroll. And because of that, your feed becomes a mirror of your attention. I tell people not, a mirror of your attention and not necessarily your intention. So if something shocks you, angers you, or entertains you, AI will feed you more of it. And this is how we end up in these echo chambers or information bubbles where we assume everyone is seeing the same thing that we're seeing, when in reality, they're not. And so for communities often pushed into the margins, Black, Brown, Indigenous, rural, groups, this matters because these systems were not designed with us in the center. If the data on AI, that trains AI excludes our stories, our voices, our experiences, the cultural context, then our realities can be flattened, can be distorted, can be erased, in these algorithms. And if AI is constantly shaping what we see, then we have to understand that AI is also shaping what we believe.
Yeah, AI definitely has been overtaking my social media, I've noticed, especially when it comes to videos and deepfakes. I see a lot of.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, how easy is it for like anyone to make one? I know that Sora, the new platform, has been quite a bit of an issue lately, especially for celebrities.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Deep fakes. I don't think people realize that deep fakes used to require like sophisticated software, like advanced editing, video editing skills, the kind that you use on movie sets, right? Specialized computers. But today, anyone with a smartphone can create fake videos or even a fake voice recording in minutes, oftentimes seconds. And there are now apps, I know you mentioned Soro, that allows you to upload a photo and instantly animate it or replace someone's, do like a face swap. And there are also programs that are now, and these are free also. Some of these programs are just free and just open AI, open for the public to use, that can clone a voice after listening to it for just a few seconds. And there are websites also where you can easily just drag and drop someone's face in there. So I don't have to go on and on about how easy this is, but that accessibility, like making that accessible, is what makes deep fakes so dangerous. So I want to name that, right? And not just because they can fool strangers or, but because they can fool everyone. They can fool us. It used to be, these were just they were used, like I said, in film or a scam, and you kind of, there was a purpose there, but now you can just impersonate people. We can impersonate people that we all know, our elders, our organizers, political folks, trusted people in the communities, elected officials. And because these fakes often play on our emotions, our fears, our outrage, the griefs and hope that we have. I know recently, I'm not sure if you all have been following the trend on social media with the government shutdown that's going on, where there have been these deep fake videos depicting African American families and women outraged about the SNAP benefits not being available. We saw where Fox News actually ran a story using one of these. I guess they did not know it was a deep fake. And that is very troubling, especially when you look at the historical trope of the welfare queen, or when we're talking about government assistance, how there's this racial trope that says, oh, it's just communities of color that are taking advantage of the government. And so during this time where we have 42 million Americans, food security on the line, you have folks who are making these deep fake videos just depicting, Black women, Black families, being outraged about this, but almost in a way of they're trying to scam the government, right? Further perpetuating that false narrative. And that's an example of how these videos are being weaponized and used, against communities. Also, we have already seen deepfakes that are being used for voter suppression, misinformation campaigns, targeting, certain communities who are already battling with voter suppression. There was a fake Biden, voice that was used to tell voters to not vote in the primary. I don't know if people, were following that. There were deep fakes out during the election that were showing communities of color dressed up in MAGA gear, door knocking. But when you zoomed into the videos, you can see fingers missing. You can see, picture frames stuck on the side of the house, like in a very awkward way. And so this really weaponizes, this type of information. It creates barriers, for communities who are already dealing with a mistrust, of the government. So in this moment, we are really being called to sharpen like our discernment, right? We cannot rely on sight alone anymore. And that is scary. I don't know about you all, but that is scary when you cannot rely on just, this video looks real. You can't rely on, it sounds like someone I know, right? Like we have to rely on verifying, on relationships, institutions like Community Clarity now, because deep fakes are everywhere and they're very accessible.
That's so true. In our tribal community, there was a Native American actor, Graham Greene, who passed away not very long ago. And there was this meme of Willie Nelson singing at the funeral, a complete and utter fake. But, a lot of our community members are not tech savvy, you know what I mean? And so they don't, spotting a fake is near impossible. And it is really terrifying. Especially when you're talking about the algorithms with the narrative, because, our story as Indigenous peoples been told by non-natives most of the time. And we all know all about stereotypes, Hollywood stereotypes and stigmas. And so, the idea that what AI is learning is from what's existed and not necessarily our own narrative, I can see how that's a real challenge and really negatively potentially impacting us, and we don't even know it.
Absolutely.
I was wondering, so I mean, AI has one of the scariest things to me is that it's progressed so quickly. And, in school, we heard about some of the applications that it could be used for, but it wasn't necessarily readily available to all of us. And now it is. And quite rapidly. I remember just a few years ago, there was a video going around of Will Smith eating spaghetti. And it looked crazy. It looked all kinds of deformed and insane. And then within a matter of like 2 years, it was like recognizable from the real deal. The lighting has gotten really good. The assets that they're uploading into it and stuff like that, it's amazing. But it's also dangerous, as you mentioned. Being able to replicate someone's voice or visually, and a lot of all of us haven't been in school since the rise of AI, so we're not necessarily taught tools to identify what is AI, and it's moving so quickly that it'll be, I think, harder and harder to discern it. So hopefully, regulations and stuff catch up so that we can avoid a lot of misinformation. Do you think there's ways that we can use AI to benefit us, and maybe how can we use it to possibly help us learn, or maybe learn about candidates or issues, or is it best that we go another route in terms of how we're getting our information?
It's almost like so there's a theory called technological determinism that points out that technology shapes society, it shapes advancements in society, whether it is because of technology, people consume information differently. So if you think about having a newspaper, a physical newspaper, but now when people say they're reading a paper, not too many people think of a physical newspaper. They may be thinking of an online news or something that's, that's handheld that you can pull up on your Kindle or your mobile phone, right? But with those advancements comes, advantages, but also disadvantages. So it's this double-edged sword. It's like, okay, there's a give or take. If we want to advance, with convenience comes issues. And so AI has completely reshaped, where we get our information. And I don't see us going back, on that to a physical paper. I'm sticking with that example. But, most people are not reading full articles, attending town halls, or analyzing policy. They're getting their information from clips, and AI software is used to cut the clips, right? AI is determining what's the most viral clip. They're getting it from headlines. They're getting it from memes, direct messages, Facebook groups, live stream rants, podcasts like this one, in the comment section. And so, but most of these are curated by the algorithm, which is designed to keep us engaged and not informed. So, there's this whole where news has become this infotainment, and I think the result, it can be that two people living in the same household can receive completely different versions of a political reality. One person can see this inspirational messaging about civic participation and engagement and collective community care, while the other can see a fear-based message convincing them that another party is out to get them or that their vote doesn't matter. And this is how misinformation and disinformation spreads. Not by shouting, it used to be mudslinging and shouting lies loudly, but really by whispering these tailored, false narratives and sometimes half truths directly into the feed of each person based on what they are most likely to believe. And here's where it becomes political, because campaigns can now use AI to run what we call micro targeting messaging campaigns, like messages that are culturally specific, emotionally tailored, and strategically designed to influence behavior. And in some communities, AI-powered messaging is used to encourage voting, and that can be a good thing, right? Encouraging folks to get out to vote. But in others, it has been deliberately used to discourage turnout. In 2016, millions of Black voters were targeted with this type of deterrence, messaging around the election, designed to really make them feel hopeless and apathetic or betrayed. And that strategy did not disappear. It just simply evolved. And so now understanding that AI is it is political now. It is part of political communication. It is part of, campaigning. And so understanding AI is also part of understanding narrative power, who speaks, who is heard, and who is strategically silenced. So yes, I do think that there are platforms that use AI so people can find out about their candidates. They can build their ballots. We know these apps, right? Where you can build your ballot, find out about what will be on your ballot and learn more about certain amendments, but understanding that that convenience, that accessibility on the other side is also being used to target folks, right? To shift public opinion and behavior. So there's two sides to that coin. And I don't see us backtracking from using AI, but I think it's important to name these things so that folks can be empowered to proactively address them.
Yeah, that's really good. And, we have some really important elections coming up. Midterms are coming up. Then we have, in Oklahoma, we have a gubernatorial race that's coming up. How worried should our voters be? How do we begin to equip them with knowledge? Where do we start with this?
Yeah. So when we say AI in elections, y'all, that's what I hear. I hear AI in elections. We are talking about, multiple things. Campaigns use AI to analyze data, message testing. I know we do narrative and message testing to identify likely, voters, likely voters and turnout. And so, this can be used for good, like increasing turnout or responding, quickly to folks, right? Or countering disinformation. But it can also be used in ways that are manipulative and harmful. And I think I am worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the harmful side, the bad side is starting to outweigh, the good, especially someone who is also familiar with the old school organizing of door knocking and just getting out, in the streets and talking to communities. But particularly when messaging is designed to shape emotions rather than understanding, that's when AI becomes a problem. There's this theory called the narrative paradigm by Walter Fisher, and it talks about how people are natural storytellers, and oftentimes a good story trumps rationale. And so if you think about that, if you're saying, hey, here are the facts, here's the political reality, but if that story doesn't resonate with someone, the theory says we see the world as a set of stories, then, they push back at it. They push back at the facts because it doesn't resonate with the story that they believe, right? The theory goes on to talk about how good decisions and rationale is based on people's biography, background, lived experiences. And so when we think about AI, one, creating these echo chambers, then also pushing these stories to appeal to, folks' values, beliefs, and ideas, even if it's a lie or disinformation, that's scary, especially during elections when you're trying to educate voters, when you want people to be informed, because information is powerful when it's time. Having being an informed voter allows you to go to the polls and critically analyze what is best for you, for your community, right? And so also when we talk about, using AI, in elections, I can't stress enough the AI generated misinformation and disinformation. We just talked about the deep fake videos. Also, the bots, the fake posts, the fake social media posts, the fake accounts, the fake community voice, like the fake endorsements. Everything is just fake, and these are designed not to just mislead, but to create confusion. And so much thrives in chaos and confusion. Authoritarianism, fascism, false political realities, hate, all these things thrive in this type of chaos and confusion to the point that people stop trusting anything. And when people don't trust information, they disengage, right? And when people disengage, what happens next? Like our democracy becomes weaker. It becomes easier to control. And yes, we should be worried about that. So should everyday voters be worried? We should be worried, but we shouldn't panic. We need to be aware, right? So worry and be aware. We can't afford to be casual consumers of information anymore. That time is gone, right? Like we must become our own active interpreters of this information. And I think that is a muscle that we have to start working, because once upon a time, the news was not this polarized. It wasn't this partisan. It was just giving the facts. It was, speaking to the community. Well, those days have unfortunately left us. And so like I said, we have to become these active interpreters of the information that we are receiving. So awareness in this case is our protection, which is why I'm glad we're having this conversation. Being able to discern, the tools to discern when something is fake, that is going to be a form of defense. That's our defense. And so, and then also for organizations like yours and what we're doing now and having this discussion, or grassroots communications orgs like mine, like community truth telling and raising awareness, that is also going to be a form of armor and protection.
So do you have any tools or resources to recommend to people who aren't sure where to start when it comes to fact checking all of this?
Yeah.
Or fact checking information that they see on the internet?
Yeah. So I tell folks, try to listen to the body is wise a little bit, but no. There is this community memory, right? But often we can feel when something is off before we can explain why. And I think, deep fakes and AI images often, they have tiny inconsistencies, right? Like blinking that looks unnatural. If you really look at these videos, skin textures that looks too good to be true. The deep fakes have the smoothest skin. Like, what is their skincare? But, it's just so smooth. And of course, the hands. Now, that's one thing. I know we talked about the Will Smith eating spaghetti video, and but AI still has not gotten the hands right, and maybe because there is so much diversity in how we use our hands, it's just difficult to learn. But the hands with the wrong number of fingers, earrings that really don't match. Also, you can see shadows that fall in very unnatural places, voices that sound almost it sounds like too clear, but it lacks emotional rhythm, like how I'm talking now, right? There are inflections in my voice. AI does not have that. I will say this: AI is not human. So it can pull, it can learn from humans all day, but AI lacks the descriptive observation data, meaning, in research, that means when you have a descriptive observation, lens on something, that means that you lived it, right? So AI is not human, never has been, will not be. So it lacks that human context, right? And so even with that, like with the voice and lacking that emotional rhythm and the blinking unnaturally, the skin. And so, so ask yourself, I think, when you're receiving information, I think ask yourself, does this align with this person's character? Does this measure known values? Would they normally speak this way? Who benefits if I believe or share this? That's one way to take like a relational approach, right? Again, because the trust seal has been broken. So we have to ask these questions now. And if the answer does not align with what you know to be true, then pause and do some fact checking. There are trusted sites. Look, see if they're, if it's an official account. Look at trusted news outlets. Do reverse image searches in Google. Those have been a lifesaver for me in checking certain things. And then also try to do some confirmation within your community to verify some things. And again, this is, like I mentioned, this is going to take for us to be our own like interpreters.
Thank you for that. I'm curious. So, have you been seeing an increased use in the work that you all do over in Alabama, or where do you see this being used in terms of AI, in the work that we do currently in organizing or in elections? Can it be used for something that we can benefit from, or do we need to be wary of some things? Please feel free to give your thoughts on how this might impact these next few elections or anything like that.
Yeah, and and I'll preface my comments by saying that again, we should be aware, not panic, right? And that awareness is going to be the defense that we need. And so, yes, AI can be used to suppress voting, and this is not new. It is simply a newer version of older tactics. I think people. Let's not forget, historically, voter suppression targeted, our communities, whether it's through threats and intimidation, misinformation flyers, mailers giving the wrong election dates, the robocall spreading false fear. Like AI is just, it's using this, but doing it in a faster and cheaper and more targeted and more believable way. And so, I mentioned the example, AI cloning a voice of a trusted community leader and spreading false instructions. Definitely creating fake official looking, keyword official looking messages that circulate on Facebook. Because oftentimes you can see something and it looks like it's on the company's letterhead or has the official seal, or but AI can duplicate these things. And it can also send targeted discouragement messaging to specific neighborhoods or even age groups. It can target psychographics, like moving beyond demographics, like age and race, ethnicity, but it can target psychographics, like a certain group's values, beliefs, and ideas. I want to just target a certain group that has a fear of not being, has a fear of lack of economic mobility. I want to target them with some rhetoric about how immigrants are taking over their jobs. Like AI can do all of that, right? And further, entrenching like those fears and those false political, lies, those divisive political rhetoric. And because these messages are often personalized, they feel real, right? And this is why I say, do not get your voting information solely from social media. Verify them from official election sources. And I say that even as an organization that does a lot of digital organizing work, we try to make sure that not only do we spread, information to communities that we are trusted messengers in, but we also we encourage folks to check some of these trusted sites, right? The official election sources, and we'll give them like a link or pathway there. Our safety is, especially during the upcoming election season, is going to be in, being aware. It's going to be in getting further confirmation, cross-checking, community communication, and just having a robust civic engagement, voter engagement, like election, education, infrastructure. So, we protect, our vote by protecting our information. So.
We've talked about the impact that it has online, but we know that AI also has an impact beyond the online environment. So kind of talk to what are the other things that AI is doing that people are not aware of?
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you asked that question because, I don't know if y'all been following the news with AI and the data centers, and the impact
Mhm.
on the environment. And we should be following this. Like AI might feel like something that lives in the cloud, right? But the cloud is not in the sky at this point. We really look at it, it's on the ground. Like I want you to think about it in that way. Like every time we use AI tools, stream content or store photos or train a machine, using learning models or ChatGPT, like that data is housed in these massive data centers, like these huge warehouse like buildings that are filled with thousands of constantly running computers. And these centers, require enormous amount of electricity and millions of gallons of water to keep their systems cool. It really pulls from a lot of natural resources. So while AI feels, invisible and futuristic and gives us all this convenience, it unfortunately, its impact is very physical. And I myself, have been learning about this with organizers and community members, because it touches our land, it's, our air, our water, and if you're in the climate justice space, ultimately that means that it's touching our future. And so if a data center is built near a community, especially in rural or historically marginalized areas, it can strain local water supplies, increase pollution, which we know happens when people put these factories, in these already underserved, communities, increase, air pollution, drive up energy demands. In some places, data centers have consumed so much water during heat waves that nearby communities face water restrictions. And so when energy companies need more power to support these centers, they often turn to coal, natural gas, or frack gas, which means more refineries, more pipelines, more air pollution, and more environmental risk. And so this matters deeply because environmental harm is never distributed equally. That history has shown us that. Black, indigenous, rural, low-income communities are the ones most likely to live near, polluted industries, most likely to live near, watershed and landfill sites, contaminated rivers, toxic air corridors, and these are, the same communities who have faced, and I keep saying history has shown us this. Like these communities have faced generational environmental injustice, and AI can make those burdens heavier if we are not part of the planning and decision making. And so the deeper question, who benefits and who pays the cost? And that's something I've been thinking about because, big tech companies make millions. Makes billions with a B from AI systems. But the water and the land and the energy needed to run them often come from communities who see little to no economic return, who are not at the decision making table, about what are some of the mitigation strategies to mitigate some of the environmental harm. Because, I mentioned I don't see us going back in technological advancements, but there are ways that we can begin to mitigate some of the harm because the data is out there and showing that this harm is inevitable, right? And so we need to be asking, like, who owns these data centers? Like, who decides, who is deciding where they are built? Who controls the water usage? What safeguards already exist for the land and the people, right? Are the economic benefits reaching the community, or is it extracting from it? And some of these, we can look at history and we probably know some of these answers, or can assume, some of these answers. But we need to demand. I've been encouraging folks, like as this grows and we see these data centers popping up, we have to start organizing and mobilizing and demanding environmental impact transparency before they bring these data centers. Community benefit agreements. energy sourcing from renewables, like water usage caps and protections. Like we have to start thinking proactive, right? I think, Black, Indigenous, rural, and frontline leadership in the decision-making process of this. I think people who share the lived experiences for the communities who will be mostly impacted need to be at the decision-making table, when this is happening, because AI is not just shaping our digital world. I'm even, learning more and more how it's shaping our physical world too. And that now, I know I talked about the digital world, not panicking, but that is something I panic about, and because I don't think enough people are aware. And what that tells me is that if enough people are not aware, then it's going to put most of us in a very reactive position when we start dealing with the results of it. And I think more people need to be aware so we can start having these proactive conversations and putting these proactive measures in place, and really making demands on folks who are bringing these centers, and on, our elected officials who are signing off on this stuff. And so, I think the fight for democracy is always connected to the fight for the land. I think people forget about that, right? The water, the right to breathe clean air, but only if we are a part of the decision making. AI does not automatically create justice. AI reflects, whoever trains it, funds it, deploys it. AI is capitalist, just like this country. I hate to say it, like AI is, what it was born out of. Like, so the key is not just using AI. I think the key is having self-determination in how AI is built, how it is governed, and how it is applied. And I think when communities who are pushed into the margin, when when I say that, I all the time I've been following up with, I'm talking about Black, Indigenous, people of color communities. But when I think we need to lead technology. When we lead the technology, it becomes a tool for cultural preservation, for democratic power, a tool for sovereignty. And so when we say AI should serve the people and not replace or silence the people, that is what that means. That is what I mean.
So with that in mind, actually, the impact that it has on the environment, I know that it takes up a lot of water, it takes up a lot of land, and it really can cause concern for climate change, which is something that a lot of people are, especially young people, are very concerned about. Is there a way of using AI to kind of help us as organizations? Is there, like, if any, a way for us to use AI that is responsible?
I like that question. Especially for the next generation, because we are getting to a point where, especially in a couple of election cycles, the majority of the voter block is going to be made up of what I call digital natives, meaning people who have never known life without a screen. And so, speaking to the next generation, my young folks, yes, there is a way to use AI responsibly. I want to say that, I see the next generation, like, your greatest strength is that if you're rooted in, and I say this often, if you're rooted in your community needs, rooted in the ancestral memory, rooted in the land, rooted in, like, in touch with, the environment, then technology is a tool. It doesn't become like the thing that replaces all of that, right? Like, technology is the tool, but your collective wisdom and memory it should be the compass, like how you use it. So you don't need to master every digital skill, right? And AI is not used for everything, but your role is to protect the integrity of information in your community. And I think you can use AI making sure you're sharing accurate information, because, like I said, there are pros to this, right? you can teach folks how to question sources. You can raise awareness. Remember, I said that awareness is going to be our biggest protector, right? Be the ones who say, let's check first. I think the next generation is going to be the bridge between generations, like the digital and the ancestral. Like that is something I'm looking at. I see that as sacred work, because like I said, I don't see us moving away from AI. But also another way there are a couple of points I want to point out when we think about, especially the upcoming elections and how AI can be used for good. Translating civic materials into native languages. I'll be the first to say, not the first, I'll be probably one of many to say that, as someone, I have a grassroots communications organization, and we have all this civic engagement, voter, information. And one of the biggest challenges is making this accessible to all the different languages that exist within our communities. And so, using this to translate information. Also, using this to digitally organize your community. Again, when we think about the new majority voter bloc being made up of people who have never known the world without a screen, and we think about how technology is shifting the way not just people consume news, but how news is disseminated. And so I think, using it to increase access to election information, using it to document and preserve like cultural knowledge. We are seeing this attack on our history, our cultural memory and knowledge and preservation. And so you see folks using AI tools to preserve those things. And so those are just some of the ways that I see that, hey, we can use this for good. Yeah.
Well, I think you answered all my questions in that last statement. I do want to say for our audience, if you've never, AI is kind of a big buzzword right now. If you're not familiar with it, it stands for artificial intelligence. And really, it's a computer-based model of learning information and using that information to inform decisions moving forward. And it's gotten super technical and advanced over these last few years. And whether you know it or not, it is prevalent in our life already, whether it's in your phone, on your computer. Unless you are living out in the woods and you are off grid, then it's not a part of your life. But other than that, it is a part of every single aspect of our society right now, whether it's helping compute information, whether it's operating machinery, doing anything from just simple day-to-day things to helping launch spacecrafts and all kinds of crazy things. So I encourage you, if you're concerned about some of these things that you hear about regarding AI, if you see videos that are unsettling, you can always report those or say in the options, I don't want to see this type of content anymore. But I do recommend for us as civic engagement organizations and as voter organizations, talk to your local officials, talk to your state representatives. If you feel like this is out of control, we have time. It's still early in its lifespan, so we can make changes. We can set regulations and rules that help prevent some of these things from going on. So I encourage you, please feel free to read more about this. We're happy to give you more information if you want to reach out to us at Rock the Native Vote. And Anisha, again, thank you so much for joining us and for helping us unpack this topic and for sharing your insight and all the things in regards to your work. And we appreciate you sharing your time with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for facilitating this conversation. This is a way to use AI. So how we're using it right now. Knowledge is power. Let's get this information out there for folks. So thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much. And just to remind everybody, Rock the Native Vote is a nonpartisan initiative working to empower Native voters across Oklahoma and beyond. Visit us at rockthenativevote.org, and we look forward to seeing you in our future events. So thank you all, and thank you, Anisha, so much.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Take care.